The Beauteous Woman, Ronald Ssemyalo. Chapter 1. The Sugar in Her. The howling German shepherd that ultimately barked at the departure hour shook the heavens to cry down lightning, which flashed to expose her bare back. It was clear that Mr. Chow Phillips had a woman kneeling in front of him in his Porsche car. He immediately drove away when it kicked off pattering. That was a divine blessing in disguise, which barred his colleagues from approaching the car. They all stood stuck, watching him with the woman vanishing in the horizon, and scattered their eyes around to see his wife, Lona Phillips, aiding Mr. Nord carry his gifts to the nearby dining table. It was self-explanatory that the man was cheating on his faithful, beautiful wife. Tears rolled the cheeks of Chow's secretary Maria, who ran very fast to notify Lona before anyone else did so, for she would be bitterer if another person delivered such a breathtaking message. Luna poured cold water on the information by gathering all the energy in her and rested a bombastic slap on Maria's left cheek in front of everyone. She added that her husband was the most faithful person the world had ever seen, thus was not ready to let fake girls like Maria, who yearned for cheap popularity, to shatter what the duo had built for years. She left whatever she was doing, picked her golden bag, and left the party with extreme rage. Runa had humiliated her best friend, moreover her sister, before her bosses and executive clients. Co-workers looked at Maria coiling to the washrooms and regretted why she spilled the secret. After all, only 4 of them were at the scene, witnessing Mr. Chow exploiting the gifts of nature. Rumor had it that stress had dragged Chow into hiring an escort, given the distance between his wife and him. It is worth noting that the chief executive officer of No. Communication Company had passed on a couple of months back, and Mr. Chow Phillips had taken over as acting CEO as he waited for the board to decide on the full CEO. He was very sure that the board was to vote for him to take the big seat. Unfortunately, things turned the other way around when a young man who had not even spent a year at the company was appointed to take over. To Chow's astonishment, the young man had a spectacular villa from where the congratulatory party took place. Mr. Nodivenus had given in everything to see this aboard exit by 27. No one could exactly tell how he accumulated his wealth, but the fact remained that Nod was loaded. No wonder he easily became the company's CEO in no time. Some workers alleged that he bribed for his position. However, others lamented that the young man had more money than the company, thus it was logical to let him take over such that he could rescue it in case of any financial hiccups. It was not surprising that Chow lost control upon learning that Nord was taking over. To make matters worse, his wife Lona voted in Nod's favor. This tied a millstone in his neck and pulled him to a dangerous state of quagmire that drove Chow to bar a couple of days back and asked for a glass of water, which I delivered then. He wanted to know my name. Of course, I could not hesitate given his class, handsomeness, the car he was driving. To be sincere, Mr. Chow was gentle. Upon emptying the glass, He ordered for whiskey. However, I reminded him that we were operating a Jewish bar, thus his order was null. He hit the table at once and complained about agent serving him. I was running out of options, for the two girls we had moved out with the Queen, our boss, to the State House. I heard a certain minister had ordered for a threesome. Anyway, that was none of my business. In a nick of time, Queen, Nile, and Vanny came singing while dancing. They were so happy, jubilating that it was not a threesome as the order looked like, but the minister wanted 3 gorgeous women to entertain the French ambassador who had come to discuss the national tour and travel terms for French tourists. Nile was the happiest. The ambassador had liked her fake dances with caterpillar strokes and tipped her with 1,000 francs. He promised to take her to France for a vacation the following year. They entered throwing money in the bar, unaware that someone seated in the corner was bitter with me because I served him. My heart was racing, for I suspected Mr. Chow to report to Queen. However, it was a wrong premonition. He instead called me and asked for the name of the girl in blue. There the sky fell on me as I excused myself that she was unavailable. This was unbelievable. $9 was my dream girl, and I never even had a chance to tell her what I really felt for her. Misfortune fell when this rich man wanted to know her name. There I stammered as he pulled out a bundle of 10,000 shilling notes. Well, the song that went, God made man, man made money, money made man mad, crossed my brain as I intoned the girl's name. He pulled out another bundle and requested me to call her. Bureaucracy set in at the juncture. It was not allowed to call a girl for anyone minus paying at the counter. In addition, it would be someone else but not Nile, the face of Pearl Juice Bar. She was the most expensive with an inflationary value rated at 25%. She was the most expensive escort in the city. There I went to the counter and paid, but still Nile never showed up. Instead, Vanny was dispatched to Mr. Chow's table. He complained like a goat in the middle of a heavy downpour, but that was his money's value. Chow sent for the boss, who explained that sitting with Nile required him to pay $50 per minute, yet he had paid $25 worth 1 minute with Vanny Angels. He clicked inside him that I had swindled his money and kept a blind eye. He later changed his mind and ordered for Queen herself. At first, she thought money was the problem. However, he explained that Nile looked young and felt uncomfortable with Vanny Angels because she resembled his secretary. The person paid the whole day and even tipped us all. Queen was the author of this bar and an architect of the Face Me program, thus she was the best in the game. She let Vanny slither away and stood in front of the dude with scattered legs partially visible from ankles to hips, given the transparent attire she wore. She had slimmed to the maximum that her waist was as narrow as a wasp's waist. Her belly was so flat that one could easily notice she was breathing without looking at the chest given its movement. It was difficult to estimate the size of her avocado-shaped breasts basing on the bra she put on every time I saw her. Queenie's pink lips were very small, matching her needle-like nose. Although people admired her big blue eyes that shone like stars, leaving men in hypnosis, they were so attractive. Maybe Mr. Chow Phillips admired her stunning looks and forgot about Niall's elegance. Down she sat and rested her hands on the table of a miserable man who asked first why they never had whisk. She replied that they were the men's whisk and ready to take away their stress. She explained that they knew how to treat their clients to the mountains of satisfaction. While the gent was still wondering how they did it, his eyes grew heavy and kicked off smiling. He had landed on the fundy of the game. The man was feeling relieved before her hands touched him, for the legs had undoubtedly delivered well. No wonder she was called Queen, the Pearl Goddess, highly skilled. Mr. Chow felt comfortable with the Queen, and the two kicked off talking about each other's privacy. He could not believe that most of his comrades he had worked with for 10 years had suddenly betrayed him, including his wife, and voted against him. On top of that, Luna had led the committee to throw up a party at the villa. They continued discussing as Queen consoled that a certain person who contested for presidents in their country gathered all the 19 family members to the polling station on the voting day. All cast their votes, but when it came to counting, Bonica had only one vote. Chow laughed loudly, asking for what exactly happened. Queen continued that the person fainted and rushed to the hospital. At his discharge, the family had organized a ceremony celebrating his loss. They explained that they loved him so much that him being their father was the best thing they had ever seen and they had ever had. The wife needed a husband besides she was not lacking. They continued that he was too good to be a president, for this called for taking tough decisions involving taking people's lives, if possible, hurting others, insults, and at the end he was to please no one. He looked at them and opened his arms for them to engulf as the party continued. Chow gazed at Queen speaking for long and smiled. She was not only darling but also prudent. He knew she was trying to strengthen his relationship with the wife. This was rare to hear from a woman of Queen's caliber. They continued talking and requested her to escort him to the party the following day. The D-Day surfaced. Queen, decently dressed to kill, and staged to the rendezvous point that evening. Mr. Chow too arrived in his sky blue suit with a pink necktie resting on a red shirt. He stared at the elegant woman, and worms kicked off running around his belly. She was not only smart but also attractive. This time the lips had been painted red, matching her stick-like earrings. This complemented her oval pendant that almost rested in the middle of the roots of her partly visible enticing boobs, as her black dress covered the rest of the body parts with exception of the limbs. He swallowed saliva when she gave him a gloved hand to lead her to the car. He was regretting why he had deceived her, for the party was the following day. He drove her to his new apartment under construction and sorrowfully apologized. He had no idea on what he was playing with. He pulled out a bundle of money and paid off, then drove her back to Pearl. She was so bitter and warned him never to contact her again. Chow never remained the same after letting Queen go. He pinched himself numerous times, drove for a few kilometers and stopped, then hit the steering and finally speeded away. The following day, he came early morning and parked outside Pearl Juice Bar. I moved out, saw this shameless executive married man craving for a good-for-nothing whore, and wondered. We tried to contact Queen, but was nowhere to be seen. Chow ultimately drove to the party, met his friends there, happily banqueting, Luna moving up and down. The couple coincided when went to pick wine glasses and sipped for seconds. Chow's cell phone promptly buzzed. It was Queen outside. She had finally made up her mind and showed up. Chow excused himself that there was a new client outside who needed his attention. He sloped to the parking yard to see her. It was obvious that Queen knew what she wanted. As soon as he entered into the car to drive away, she jumped onto him as he also lowered the driver's seat. With rapidity, she unbuttoned his shirt and pulled his white vest to the chest, leaving the hairy packs exposed. She caressed Chow crazily to groan like a male warthog in the mud, enjoying every bit of rigor. He threw the hands behind, thus stretched his body up, letting her access the belt with ease. Her hands remained up as the head was lowered to give him total satisfaction. Truth be told, Chow was temporarily in paradise with closed eyes, only to be interrupted by a rambling dog outside in association with rain, which lured him to drive away. No one guessed what transpired later on. Chapter 2. Bitter Truth. It was getting late. Many had left, and Maria moved out of the washrooms. Her red eyes landed on the new CEO, Nod Venus. The man was smart, so handsome with shining eyes. He did not need to call her, for it was obvious she had to bid chariot him just as the rest had done. He pointed at the chair where she uncomfortably sat, panicking as if thorns were at the buttocks. Nod wondered why Maria was in such a fearful state, yet the two were good acquaintances before his promotion. She stammered, calling her sir, as he smiled and advised that calling him Nod was suffice. He served her a glass of wine, cheered up, and sipped in style. He requested her to feel free with him, for she was to retain her job and promotion was on merit. He added that the company needed more of the young and fresh blood who were believed to not only be hardworking, nimble, but also innovative. Their confabulation continued amidst graveyard silence. He inquired for an explanation about the misunderstanding between Luna and her. He had witnessed everything from a distance. Maria lied, trying to cover for her. However, he advised her not to do so, for it was not requisite because he could easily tell someone deceiving. She stared at him and wondered the kind of a person Nod had become. She breathed in deeply while cutting eyes around. She spoke the truth. Nod piqued unique interest in the scandal, wondering how Chow would be lured to cheat on his perfect wife. His brain clicked that whoever Chow slept with had to be extra pretty. Nod advised Maria not to share with anyone about his or her encounter. He escorted her out and moved on to the CCTV camera's room. He watched everything he wanted and zoomed Queen's picture, then looked for the name from the gateman. He picked up the phone and made a number of calls. Mr. Nod moved to his office and perused through the company's books of account. He crossed to the company's administrative structure and made considerable vicissitudes requisite for the best of the company. Nod was still energetic and industrious, thus gave in whatever it took to build an international five-star company. The following morning, he drove to company headquarters in Masaka and addressed the board of directors. Then he called heads of department for a meeting that took 2 solid hours. Nod had comprehensively changed. He was so principled, formal and straight compared to the previous one, who was simply a team leader in the marketing department, cracking jokes with whoever gave him time. Maria looked at him, shook the head in doubt. She could not imagine that the guy she could at times buy lunch, the man who used to pin the company's billboards and did the company's all sorts of manual labor, was addressing him in the dignity of CEO, giving them orders. Some of the casual workers almost grabbed him, claiming that impersonation was not allowed and were to report him to Mr. Chow to either fire him or hand him over to the disciplinary committee. Some laughed at him that he was joking in big shoes of a hippopotamus, yet he had a monkey foot. Many had no idea about their new CEO, and even if the company was to choose a new person, still Chow was the best candidate given his experience, commitment, and academic credentials. Good enough, Chow and his wife reported. Nod summoned them to his office. This left the rest of the workers as mute as a thought. Down, he asked them to find comfort. However, Chow remained standing, fuming with ire. He was still in denial and could not believe he was no longer the company's CEO. He recalled the day he admitted Nod while still the company's human resource manager the previous year, and intoned that he was going to sue the company through his lawyer. There Nod asked Luna to expound to Chow before matters worsened. As soon as she stood to talk, Chow lost temper and hit the table thrice. He shouted that he knew very well that Luna had been screwing with Nod. He pulled out a gun and pointed it at Nod, yelling like an angry, hungry lion. Indeed, the man was so bitter to an extent that taking someone's life was as easy as eating banana. Nod smiled and openly apologized to Luna that Chow was not good enough and had failed the test. She stretched her hand, lowered Chow's, and intoned it was done. She said that Nod's father was the biggest shareholder who sent him to Oxford University for further studies. However, Nod did not want to work with his father given the fact that he was an illegitimate son. It came to their notice that the only legitimate daughter was married in USA, thus never wanted to know about his father's wealth. Nod had gathered incredible wealth before he joined their company, and his incognito casual job here was meant to find out suitable personnel to work with. Luna continued that Nod was supposed to take over as the company president, but when the CEO joined the choir invisible, he chose to be and wished to promote Chow to be the president. Unfortunately, Chow proved incompetent in decision-making when he preferred maintaining his position to the biggest seat. Poor Chow felt melting in front of his boss. He dropped the gun as he turned to confront the wife, who never alerted him about all this. He was guilty before his replacement. He recalled making stupid decisions, meeting Queen, holding a gun, and others which compromised his candidacy. Mr. Chow Phillips knelt down and asked for forgiveness from Nod with a promise to hand in his resignation letter in the evening. Luna joined him, pleading that Chow was a very good asset who had access to many clients, and other competing firms required for revamping their company from the economic slump. The CEO looked at the couple, afraid, then signaled to them to get up. He spoke that he had served well and required a second chance, although the CEO put it clearly that everyone was expendable. Therefore, he needed results, nothing else. Chow was advised to pick up his former position as HR, waiting to contest for presidency. The couple thanked their boss and left. While shopping, they met Maria carrying an envelope. She had come to apply to be the boss's secretary. She handed in and left for lunch. Nod too descended the stairs, having told his chauffeur to organize him a black Audi, for he was going for a private ride. He cruised slowly to a certain destination. Probably he headed to the direction of Pearl Juice Bar. Maybe he wanted to see Queen. I saw this car with my eyes. Everyone espied it because it was too expensive to pass downtown. He bypassed us, trekking to the nearby bank. Nile wanted to exchange her francs into shillings. Mr. Nod parked outside Pearl for about 5 minutes. Then Queen dispatched Vanny, who feared to approach the guy. Reason being, the person was class apart. His brand new car alone scared her first when her image was reflected. She saw herself and began taking selfies from a distance. Vanny was so pretty with irresistible looks that any man of Noddy's age, if not stopped, would clearly take a step. The guy finally turned after some time. Maybe he had got lost. Niall pointed at the car coming as we moved out of the bank and whispered that her dream auto was Audi. I promised to buy it for him, as she said, a car never bought a car. She had no idea that the guy would stop. He entered the bank for a couple of minutes, then moved out with some lady holding his briefcase. She almost bowed 9 times after tipping her. The tragedy occurred when Niall rested her bag onto the man's car after taking pictures. We ran aimlessly, leaving it behind upon hearing an alarm. He threw it in the middle of the mud of the road. Some of the girls' property scattered all over, then entered the car to leave, but Niall's passport-size photo turned non-issues into the biggest situation that year. Nod picked all the things plus the bag itself and drove away. Niall and I were always in hiding, hoping that the gent would send the police to arrest us. It took us almost a week to walk freely in the streets. I knew one thing in life, being close to Niall. When eyes closed, I saw Niall. In the night, I would dream of Niall. The young lady was flowing within my bloodstream. She had just dropped out of the university from one of the remotest districts, Kirihora. Then the father sent her to Masaka City to work with her auntie, Queen, who ushered her into prostitution. This innocent soul had nothing to do with the wild habits of Queen, because she did not even know what to do. Nonetheless, our boss made her the face of Pearl. Regardless, being so protective to her, Queen did not have to indulge Niall into this. She would have got her another job to do. Mr. Noddy Venus never remained the same after seeing Niall's snap. He spent sleepless nights cogitating about what to do. This young rich man never had a wife and spent most of his time with the dogs. People thought he was sterile. He had never given any special attention to a woman, be it Maria, his secretary, or any other person. Noddy was not sure as well about what was going on in his life. The girl he had never met was washing his brain, leaving him with one alternative: questing for her. Rumor had it that the boss had a germinating intimate relationship basing on Maria's admission and connection to Luna Phillips, a great friend to Nod. This was still doubtable, for there was no concrete evidence to back it up. One afternoon, light shone at Pearl. the CEO appeared and found us playing cards. Vanny whispered to us that that was the man with the billionaire car. By the time Nile stood up to a load, she bumped into him. She shook helplessly in front of the dude, who also looked amazed by what his eyes rested on. He too was quaking, judged by the movement of the car keys he held shortly and finally fell. Naughty Venus stared at $9 for some good seconds as I watched the movie live. I am sure he was discerning what I had perceived weeks ago. Beauty. Right, it was not debatable. Nile was so beauteous. Her spectacular round eyes that turned on man kept Nod standing to see what I had never seen. Innocence. He kept the rest to himself as the girl picked up the dude's keys. She gave them to him and ran for a short call. Vanny followed him to his car, asked for what he wanted, but the person simply remained dumbstruck as he drove away. By the time Queen finished attending to the customers in room 4, the billionaire had left. Vanny came back smiling that she had taken another selfie on the person's black Mercedes-Benz. It was then that I learned Nod changed cars like clothes. He had all the money he needed. Nile was trapped in the room, washing hands and face, regretting why she took pictures at the person's car. She thought he had come to take her to prison until Vanny joined her with sweet words that she was too gorgeous to be handcuffed. She added that the man had come to see her, nothing else. Vanny added that the gent never said a word to anyone, which meant Nile was the mission. She continued that she had looked at Nod without any brain, staring at Nile, and realized she was the theme of the day. The two moved out and inquired from me whether Vanny's speculation was right, but I had no answer because I had already realized that piece of meat in my mouth was under test, for my heart was already tense. Chapter 3. Trapped by her looks. I could not believe the weeks I had worked with Nile. Nothing was disclosed to her, and she had never panicked as Mr. Nod made her do. Maybe she had thought otherwise. My silent prayer was to keep her less informed about men for some good months as I gathered enough courage to let her know what I felt for her. Vanny pulled me for a moment and intoned it was of value to look for the other rich man and connect him to Nile. We were to earn madly if the deal worked out well, since we could easily influence her, and if possible, we were to give her the least share. I looked at Vanny vomiting her nonsense to me and felt like punching her down. So stupid. The girl was too naive to expose her to such an executive man. Besides, I liked her as well. My dream was to escort her home in the evening, as I always did, but this time I had a mission to execute. We walked as usual, leaving men envying me for being close to the prettiest. This time I held her hand when we reached the corner of many masses. We continued moving past her home since I had promised her chocolate hidden up on the mountain. We climbed slowly and regretted for the days I spent minus touching her, taking her for a walk and others. While up there, she stood happily wanting to fly. She requested me to hurry up to join her since I was still climbing. Nile did not know I was still contented down there. For real, my eyes still desired eating this meal. Her nice legs. From the calves I rarely saw to the thighs I had never seen. They were so light with no stretch marks. Despite her village background where children there spent their lives grazing, digging, fetching firewood and others, her thighs were spotless, so beautiful and attractive. Actually, they were sexy. She gave me a hand to climb as I closed my eyes, pretending I never wanted to see her. Speechlessly, I stood in admiration of God's creation. Her unique looks, genuine smile with kissable lips. Nile was a true source of purity. It was then that I established why Queen positioned her as the face of Pearl, yet she never knew anything about men. She used the night to attract men and raised her buyout clause too high to whoever ordered for her, such that they failed and went for the rest like Vanny. Right. Nile was before me, smiling while demanding chocolate from me. I told her to close the eyes and turn, which she did, then requested her to look at what I held. She jumped onto me, calling me a magician because of manufacturing chocolate. Confidence lifted me up and acquiesced with my inner man that the girl was mine. Full stop. Down we sat, then I told her about my sex life. She listened carefully and asked me whether having sex was painful. There I clicked. She had never met any man, though still dubious, thinking she was tricking me because Queen had assigned her to escort different men earlier. Anyway, me continued asking her to tell me about her sex life, but gave me an evening laughter when she said her sex life was female. She too tittered, calling the query obvious. When inquired about her boyfriend, she almost killed me with pressure when she said she had many boyfriends, though most of them were in the village. About the city, she said there was only one. My heart was restless. I pressed to know the name jokingly. Then she mentioned mine, and I added I was the only one, since she had not met many guys but promised to get more with time. This girl was crazy. When I asked her about the person she met in the morning, she replied the handsome man was fierce and never wished to interact with him because she feared moving close to him. When I asked whether she feared me, her response was no and confirmed it with a hug. Great. I saw myself in paradise. The body temperature skyrocketed to the highest degree. I failed to recall given my poor chemistry. Nonetheless, it was around 2000 degrees centigrade. I felt Nile had given in. There I slowly held her tightly and whispered that I liked her. She replied that she liked me too, and it was uncalled for because we were not enemies. There I lowered my head and kissed her. Silence killed us for seconds, then she pulled back a bit. Whatever happened, my grandchildren will also be told. She plastered me with a bombastic slap that shattered my jaw to spit blood. Down I called while feeling my mouth empty. The tongue was forced to move around to check, however, it never had a confirmatory report until I touched there. She immediately stopped crying that I had raped her as I followed to the main road. As soon as she reached in the middle, an overspeeding car hit her down and continued racing. I galloped to the scene shouting while crying because it was my fault. People gathered around causing commotion without solution, for some advised us to go and bury the body before it was taken to a mortuary to avoid charges. Suddenly, a young woman spoke in a low tone trying to reach us. Maria took the report to her boss with descriptions of the victim. The CEO jumped out of the car, followed by his driver, pushed me away, and carried Nile to the hospital. In spite of the fact that jealousy developed my heart, I was contented she was going to receive the best medical attention. While still there, Queenie called, having picked the news about the accident, and the big question remained. What had the billionaire gone to do downtown? I too began to reconsider, irrespective of meeting the mishap on the highway. Queen picked me and rushed to St. Kizito Hospital, where we found Nod and Maria signing some documents. She moved very fast to where Nod was and spoke in low tones. They talked for a few minutes, which bought me time to meet Maria, who kept the locomotion uncomfortably. It seemed she never wanted to talk to me, for I looked like trash when I greeted her. If we were at their company, surely she would have called the guards. With all the shame, I stood for about 6 minutes, bailed by Queen, who led me to Niall's ward. She lied, facing the window in ultimate pain. She did not want to look at me for even a second. Queen sat where she was and saw her crying, then moved out. She could not bear her niece's pain. Niall's left leg had been badly injured, and the doctor explained that her head needed further checkup. When it came to medical language, scanning, radiography, etc., my brain stopped working. It seemed the CEO had cleared for everything. We were given supper minus paying. Queen asked me to go to the bar and leave the rest to her. I wanted to say sorry to Niall, however, my boss would know and tear me like hyena having seized an edible rat. I sloped out to find a newspaper journalist interviewing Nad and Maria. She asked him whether he was seeing his secretary just like Chow used to do. This drove Maria insane when she attacked the rumor woman, only to be pulled away by Nod, who ordered his driver to take them away. Money was talking, nothing else. Maria went wondering how Nod came to know Queen, yet he never moved out that day. Chow was with her. The secretary was very bitter, casting accusations towards her boss that he had a clue about Chow's adultery, but pretended not to know. She added that Nodi knew the family deeper to an extent of helping a good-for-nothing injured girl, yet other people could have done so, otherwise they would not be on TV making headlines. The boss felt uncomfortable with Maria's endless quarrel. He closed his eyes and wore a happy and romantic face immediately. The person raised his hand and rested it onto Maria's thigh, thereafter stole a peep at her in the mirror. She went as dumb as a corpse for about a full minute and began breathing faster. She was simply emotional and jealous over Nod's care for others. Maria liked Nod so much that she could do anything to have him. Kenya declared the speed, decelerated the speed, having seen the boss getting cozy suddenly. He branched off to another minor distant road to Mr. Chow's abode, where Maria stayed. His intention was to create the lady ample time with the boss to bond in his or her own way. When asked why he passed there, Kenya excused himself that it was getting late, yet traffic jam was simply starting. It did not take long. Maria was dropped off, then the two moved to the villa. She was the happiest that nightfall. She could not imagine the CEO had touched her. She moved all over the house searching for the sister to update her about the phenomenon success they had reached, but eyes landed on Mr. Chow, who was also looking for a wife. He had tried her number countless times, but found out the phone was in the bedroom. His instincts brought it that maybe he was with Nod. However, recalled Queenie telling him that Nod and Maria had been at the hospital. The man was so jealous that never wanted his wife to spend an hour without notifying him where she was and what she was doing. Chow was joking with an animal called a woman. His instincts were right. By the way, by the time the CEO arrived, she was right in front of the palace waiting for him. Kenya said hi and wished good night to his boss. He picked a little car and drove out. Inside, Mr. Chow was led with few words from Nod, who was a bit eager to find out the pretext that had brought Luna at home. She could not tell him while at work. Inside, Mrs. Chow was led with a few words from Nod, who was a bit eager to find out the pretext that had brought Luna at home. She could not tell him while at work. Elegant Luna moved closer to the bachelor, whispered to him that the security department was so loose and needed either a serious briefing or reshuffle because they had experienced the loss of 2 laptops within a week. Nod noted the point seriously when he admitted that there existed loopholes confirmed by the fact that she was inside his gate, though outside the house without his knowledge. His worry stood that Luna's issue was official, thus required official handling, but he wondered why she went to the villa. Maybe he was yet to find out. He served her a glass of wine and cautioned her to leave soon, for she was a married woman who was supposed to be home. She took 2 sips and claimed the playing song was her favorite. Luna stood up, dragged Nod to the floor, and danced to the staccato tunes of the music. The boss gazed at Luna in his arms and swallowed a can of saliva. She was so attractive, and tightly she held him and elevated her head as he lowered his to coincide. Her lips were already open, waiting for him to sign up. Unfortunately, the dog barked thrice. Nod released her very fast as he apologized and moved out to check on Black. On his way back, the guard called that Mr. Chow was at the gate. Panic was everywhere. The gigantic palace grew as tiny as a needle's hole when she was finally locked in the bedroom. Chow could not rest, minus the wife. He asked the boss whether Luna had surfaced. There, however, Nodi nodded in denial. He covered for Luna, yet her purse was right at his table. As Chow moved nearer, things fell inside, and the attention was shifted to the book called Tricks of Conmen in the library. When he turned to leave, eyes set on 2 wine glasses, but the person kept quiet, for this was his boss's home, and if he pushed the issue further and found out that the wife was not there, it would be another story. The disappointed husband drove away. Luna was Nodi's friend, and above all, a caring advisor who simply beat him with 1 year. It seemed Nodi liked Luna even more than Maria did. Discontented child drove away, leaving his wife behind. She promptly used the back exit and vanished. The younger man remained confused, moving up and down, planning what to do. Chapter 4. The Taste of Shame. Nod remained there, cogitating like a hungry monkey that wants to snatch a banana from a mocking tourist. The flashback the brain broadcasted clearly put a smile on his face. He suddenly grew sad when eyes blinked. Nod could not imagine that he looked into Luna's eyes directly and saw the magnificent beauty walls hid. She was extremely glamorous. The heart skipped a beat. He recalled Chow standing with queer rage and sat down. He had no idea about what to do. In the middle of the night, the entire body was bathed in sweat. He rolled in the white pure cotton bed sheets, then raised his hand to touch someone, and the lips were forging out something as they battled for seconds. Well, he failed to crack down the girl's name. He had perfectly taken good time exploring her nice body while in the car on their way to the hospital. Her sharp nose and the attractive lips, indeed, Nile was so trim. He yearned to speak to her. However, Maria never let it happen. She was right there all the time. Breast and bra. Science had put in place many things, but the secret in beauty of a woman was still covered. No one knew the magic hidden there. This CEO was dreaming of my girl in the middle of his perfect mansion. Can you imagine? He had everything he needed, but a young, innocent, classless village girl had conquered his orange head. Morning came. Kenya was awaiting him as usual. The boss moved out, putting on a sky blue shirt with darker jeans, then black sneakers, and ordered Kenya to pick Maria. He then used a taxi and sneaked to the hospital using the back door. There he landed on us, conversing while laughing. Vanny killing us with her previous night stories. She had slept with 2 men on one bed. She narrated that the person who had booked the room never showed up. Then it was given to an old man who paid for a night with her. The Braha stormed in when the earlier person came in. Found Bunny in the bed after the first round. She had no idea that the Mzee had left the bedroom. She only realized that it was someone else riding when the style and rate of acceleration drastically improved. Vanny continued enjoying and switched on her silence that dragged the old man to the theater of passion. He pulled the muscular star to vacate his meat. However, Mzee was thrown to the wall that one of his hands landed on the switch. She had eaten the father and son in 30 minutes. Our ribs could not settle. The laughter was eating us terribly. I could not skip stealing peeps at Nile every time she smiled. She was ever as no as an old day. As soon as I ensconced at the sickbed, Mr. Nord Venus coughed while entering. Silence slaughtered us at once. He had come incognito. Straight he stood in front of me with contempt. Vanny took over promptly when she greeted him. He replied and greeted us all. That morning made the moon shine in the hospital ward where we were that day. The hand held the fumbling girl as I gave the man room to sit on the bed. He was gazing at her. He slowly squatted and elongated his hand to touch her injured leg. Of course, it was plastered, but I wondered why he had to examine it like a doctor. Nile turned majestically and asked him to leave. She thanked Nod for everything and requested Vanny to escort him. Shame upon us. We had disgraced ourselves to the maximum. Can you imagine a man of Nod's gauge hearing our stories? Nile made herself as strong as a horse, but deep inside her, fire was charring her pride. She continued jazzing, then ordered me to sit where she was and called me darling. Confusion hit my back since I was responsible for the state of affairs. However, she seemed to have forgotten everything. There I kicked off, fearing Nile for real. She had become unpredictable suddenly. She comforted me to feel free with her because I was a nice dude with beautiful eyes. She called me handsome Jesus. She finally said that Nod had no right to take away our happiness because his presence even made the flying insects static. She added that the guy had got lost and never deserved being with us. Vanny came back coiling. The person had backed at and ordered her to mind her business when she smiled at him with enticing signals. She wanted a nod as well. When she saw Nile and I seated with gentility, her brain froze for seconds, then shouted like a miner being raped. She burst out laughing to shake the spiders from the ceiling. She exclaimed to see Nile denying Nod for good for nothing lumpenny. She warned that if our boss has to know of it, if our boss gets to know of it, we were to be punished. Panic spread into us. I slowly helped Nile to move out to the parking yard where we found Nod seated in his car talking on the phone with Maria, who inquired to find out where he exactly was. She had much wariness for him that missing 30 minutes without beholding him at the office would drive Maria crazy. Niall stood unstable while gaping at Nod, speaking happily. She knew his life was moving on well and asked me, "Move inside." As soon as we turned, Nod's car door opened. He moved straight to where we were and asked whether everything was all right. Despite the fact that Nile was so naive, she had natural pride in her. She right away replied that it was none of his business. Nodi went ahead to mention that it became his business the day she entered into his dreams and captured his entire soul. The billionaire added that it would be fine if she was responsible, but since she was so reckless and never cared about her life, he was to keep a close watch over her since then till the end of time. Chapter 5. Her price tag. Down she looked, cogitating on what to do. The guy drew closer and requested me to give them some privacy. Niall grabbed me by hand, felt the Asian solar energy passing through me. Her touch was incredibly emotional. There I turned with heavy eyes and faced her with sincerity. I sure liked her. Nodi saw it. Niall knew. I felt it deep inside my veins. She then stammered that if Nod wanted to say something, he was to do so in my presence. Nod felt melting. He sympathetically faced me like a gentleman trying to urge me to be empathetic. However much I liked the girl so much, the degree of humanity in me overwhelmed the Son of Man and moved away. Niall called me back thrice with warnings that if I did not return, Queen would wish to know how she got the accident. She knew I feared and respected her so that if anything went wrong, the job would be normal, yet the month was at sunset. Confidence showed in Nodi's eyes. Confidence showed in Noddy's eyes created a fertile ground for my departure. The two began. Nod, you do not need to be rude to me. It's not a requisite. Nile, what do you really want from me? Nod, It is, it's I to ask. You came chasing after me. Nile, can you hear yourself? I have to go. Jesus, come and take me back. Nod, I'll help you walk. Nile, stop it. Do not ever draw closer to me. Mr. Nod, I hear CEO, please leave. Jesus! Nod, I am requesting for a formal talk between you and I when you recover. I will be at Sweet Courts at 8 o'clock on Sunday. Nile, you do not need to explain. I will not show up. By the time Vanny came, Nod had left. We supported Nile back to her ward, waiting for Queen. Upset, the girl tiptoed, repeating Noddy's suggestion, then seized my hand with rage. I knew she had denied him. When Vanny had to know about it, she could tell. If Vanny got to know about it, she called us idiots, joking in someone's business. She added that a war was supposed to boil down to customers, nothing else. She quarreled that whatever Nile discussed with the client was against the laws governing us. I tried to convince her that Nod was not a client, but a private individual with no interest in what we were doing, but Vanny could not listen. She attacked me terribly, calling my explanation biased, trying to bail out Nile. She added that if Nile secretly met Nod without Queenie's consent, it would cost the bar a lot of money because Nile was still a novice who needed the boss's guidance. Vanny continued that the CEO would pay highly through the office, a thing that would benefit us all. Well, I clicked her point. I recalled our primary school sports coach who commended us that if we missed the ball, we were obliged not to miss the leg. The brain displayed it that if Nod insisted on meeting Nile, we too had to benefit. I immediately supported her suggestion. Poor girl was left helpless with no decision, but only to do as told. Nile looked at us with contempt and kept quiet. She never took us as seniors. After all, Queen was her auntie. She always left some of her duties to other girls, knowing no one would penalize her. For Noddy's case, we waited. Queen finally showed and instructed us to go to work. With Vanny, I sloped downtown, discussing about Nod. I frankly told her that Nile was the girl in my heart, and I really loved her. As if I had spoken obscene words to her, she wanted to know whether sluts fell in love. She added that they were simply money makers, and if I craved for Nile a lot, paying at the counter was the only solution. Vanny had lost her soul for good. She held my hand, rested it on her waist, and asked me to feel for seconds before we reached the bar, otherwise I was to pay when there. Oh Lord, she was so warm and enticing. This was her first charming spot. And she reminded me to stay calm, for we were simply workmates and had no right to think otherwise for one another. Vanny continued that it would be better if I got Nile because if I forgot Nile because I was yearning for what I was because what I was yearning for was far beyond my reach, given that I could not favorably compete with the Nord. I knew it, but I was sure that Nile had already leveled the ground for me, thus there was no way Vanny could scale me down. I boldly told Vanny that leaving Nile was equivalent to quitting my life. Haha. Ewa. Upon learning that Nod was interested in Nile, Queen saw $1 million opportunity and lured the girl to call him. She told him that he was to pay $2,000 at the counter first before they met because that was the order. To them, it was too much money. However, Nod promised to double the amount on condition that Nile was to follow his rules. While she still thought of what to do, Queen signaled to her to accept. The bar had become rich in seconds. No one knew what Nod was up to. Paying that much to a simple girl like Nile was unbelievable. The following day, the billionaire CEO, Nod Venus, visited downtown again and went straight away to book the girl. He pressed an order to the cashier to let him know when his money was done. I let him finish his transaction and grabbed him outside his BMW car. I was open to him that I was interested in Nile and if possible, it would be better if he left her alone. Our grudge kicked off from there. He pushed me away and warned me never to address him the way I did. He said that the girl was a public commodity and if I really wanted to have her, my purse would do it, not him. But I felt as he drove away. Vanny had seen us. She wanted to establish what had exactly happened. Silence killed me because if Queen got to know, it would be worse for me. Days passed. Nile had healed. Nod sent his chauffeur to pick her. Vanny and I stood watching our girl going to execute her first one-to-one mission and felt sad. She did not know much about men, and we knew after this mission she would never turn back. All her dreams of going for further studies and live a decent life were to end after that day. Queenie too felt pity for her. She entered the car, then turned to wave to us. As the man started the engine, Nile asked for a moment. She moved out, ran very fast, and hugged me passionately. She said she liked me and went back. I too wanted to say so. However, Queenie called me inside promptly. Chapter 6. Mission Impossible. She was driven to the villa where she sat waiting for her client. All the workers were away, and when Kenya dropped her, he left. Nile caught in the chair while skirting her eyes around the house that looked like a real Paris. She looked at her clothes and felt unfit to be there, for not even a maid would wear them. They were like old and tired. They were very old and tired. She walked around the living room for minutes and found a novel called Sweet Cousin Hell. She opened and made herself busy as she waited for the man. Soft music was turned on from the ceiling. Oh, this was quite astonishing. She had never experienced this. She wondered whether the lights doubled as speakers, but confused when he never saw wires connecting to them. The door opened. Nod came out holding his glasses and welcomed her inside with the remarks that she was smart. Hope it was not flattery. He gently served her tea with fried grasshoppers as he requested for a dialogue. Naya looked down for a moment. Then advised him to get what had paid for, because she wanted to go. He gazed at her for seconds as he took his tea and smiled. He never waited. Nile never waited. She asked him whether they were to bed in his room or any other place. Out of words, Nod seemed and threw it back when he asked her to suggest where she wanted, but Nile replied anyway. She was unhappy. Nod told her to take a shower from one of the visitors' rooms on the left chamber. She moved like a star and came back like a lizard. She had got lost. He touched her hand and led her to his room instead. Nile, are you going to look at me and dress? Do you have any manners in you? Nod. Manners? What are you talking about? Is this how you treat your clients? Do your job. Nile. At least do not look at me, please. Nod. How will I know what I paid for? Remove your clothes, I insist. Tears rolled her cheeks. She shook while entering the bedroom, took a shower, and moved out to find no clothes on the bed. Nod was nowhere to be seen. She dressed up and moved to the sitting room. He was not there. After a long search, she found him seated in the study room. At her sight, Nod lost control. His trousers never remained the same. The girl was trim. She lifted her left leg up to the chair and pulled the skirt up to expose her thighs to the already beaten CEO. She then told him that she was ready for him. He ran where she was and stood behind her, then whispered that she was so beautiful. He then lifted her to the table and stood between her thighs as he looked into her eyes. They were turning red. She was even shaking. Nod saw and withdrew his intentions. He realized something special with the girl. He asked her to join him for lunch in the dining room. He served her fried beef with potatoes and some greens. He told her that it was all right. He was not going to sleep with her, but wanted to know why she was doing a job she never liked. Nell finished her meal, thanked him, and asked to leave. She kept it a secret. Nod urged her wait for Kenya to take her as he also completed. He added that she was free to tell him anything she felt like sharing and promised to be there when she needed a shoulder to lean on. She replied that lions never ate grass, no matter how hungry they became. To her, there was no way the duo could patch together because they never had anything in common. She went to his room and changed. She was requested to take the new clothes as well. The job had been completed. She came to find us lousy with no customers, and the day had been boring. I was simply disappointed. The morale was very low at her side. The heart beat faster, and I liked her because I liked her so much. When she finished greeting Queen, I signaled to her to follow me to the corridor where no one could see us. She was excited, however, I did not let her speak. I immediately hugged her tightly and whispered to her that I liked her more than anyone did. She tightly held me as I elevated her head to face me. Her eyes communicated it, my heart beat it, lungs pumped it, and it was obvious that she felt what I felt. There was no time to condemn her for sleeping with a nod. I simply made it light when I requested her to tell me about what transpired while at the villa. I told her I liked her no matter what. Into her eyes I looked, then lowered my head slowly to oscillate her, though Vanny clapped thrice, wondering how my appetite galloped to the sky of late. She said that it was firstly unprofessional, secondly so stupid to have a woman who had just seen another man. She called it nasty as she dragged Nile away. They walked, discussing how it was. Anxious Vanny wanted to know whether Nod was good in bed, how he negotiated the corners. She insisted to find out whether the guy was romantic or simply a bedroom bully. Very many questions to a girl who was glowing. Nile did not know what to do. She knew that if she told Vanny that Nod never slept with her, Vanny would report to Queen, and if she lied, she would break my heart. She thought for minutes, wiped her eyes, then made Vanny rush to a conclusion that it had happened between them. Both hugged for minutes as Queen called Nile to the counter. She gave her the tip for the day and told her to prepare for the following day because Nod wanted to see her again. To be sincere, Queen was the happiest. She immediately called the proprietor and sent him half of the rent. We had spent 8 months minus paying. She also promised to take us out at the end of the following month. She called Vanny and paid her for the previous 2 months, then asked me to wait for some few days. This time she was sure that the CEO would give us more money. She later called Nile for a lecture. The cashier was requested for the two's privacy, which he did after balancing his books for the day, leaving the two at the seat behind the big table. Queen first apologized to Nile for involving her into prostitution. She said that it was not her intention. Queen added that Nile's father had been sick and helpless, which cost incredible sum of money. She continued that more bills at home to be catered for existed, thus they could not deny Noddy's money. After all, he seemed to be a decent young man. She urged Nile to behave well before the person and do whatever he wanted because they still needed his money. Even when Nile excused herself that she was never comfortable with Nod and requested for another person, Queen refused, pretext being that he had already paid. Besides, she was not ready to surrender her niece to someone strange. Chapter 7. Discovery of new territory. The following evening, my friend was told to prepare as Kenya picked her to the villa. She was indeed smart. Nod was there. He first asked her whether she had come with clothes for changing, and if no, preparations for new clothes had to be made before nightfall. It was crystal clear that she had to spend the entire night with him. Silent the girl remained as she requested for a glass of water. She greeted him and went straight to his room for a shower. By the time Nod entered, she had finished and wrapped in a white towel. Her Coca-Cola bottle-shaped body was perfectly revealed. Nod swallowed saliva and pretended not to have seen. He threw her his reddish t-shirt and sky blue shorts, then looked the other side. Upstairs they ascended to his collection room. It looked like a real museum. The girl gazed at ancient paintings, stones, and wondered why he had them all, and she never found value here. She only knew village life. Nod slowly guided the already bored Nile as she toured piece per piece. She finally picked a diamond necklace that Nod explained to have belonged to the late Princess Diana. Her eyes wanted it, but the pride in her lowered it down. Nod saw and got surprised. No one ever entered this room and never asked for this necklace. They moved out slowly and stood to watch her walk from a distance. She was killing him softly. The telephone rang near his table, but the person never picked. It chimed 6 times, however. Nod did not pick. This spread concern to mute Nile, who advised him to answer, for it might be someone important. Nod lifted his head, looked at her, and intoned that it was past working hours. Besides, he had a secretary in charge of company issues in his absence. He resumed with his software research and told her to give him privacy. Nile looked at the person and wondered. It seemed he never had interest in her. She sat down in her room and began calling friends. After talking to Vanny, she called me. She told me that she was safe, only that she missed me. She added that Nod had everything a woman would need, but she was not interested in him. She added that the person had given her time, however, she was not sure whether she was to survive that night. I told her that I was planning to take her away from the city and only waited for her consent. Nile talking to me was enough. She too felt at ease with me. We talked until late. She was a bit relieved and went to meet Nod. He had finished work, then served her supper the cooks had prepared before leaving. He had changed completely. He asked her to tell him how she became a prostitute. Silence glued her lips. It was evident that Nile never wanted to talk about it. He went to bed and left her taking supper. Confusion hit Nile's head, as she felt guilty about the unreasonable mistreatment against Nod. She entered into his bedroom, put off her clothes, and turned on the lights. In Adam's suit, she stood and slipped into his bed. She turned and slowly slipped her hand to touch his back. She caressed him with passion and wholesomely engulfed him. She had given in. He asked her whether she was ready for him, and she responded by holding him tightly. His heart beat faster when her boobs touched his back. He felt a million-pound warmth when her belly and thighs drew closer. She slowly fixed her leg in between his, then elevated the hand to rest in the middle of her chest. He held her hand softly and played with the fingers. She started feeling his warmth and swallowed cans of saliva. He knew she had reached the level he wanted her, however, saw it unfair to handle the issue in this situation. Nile, can I ask you? Nod. No. Nile, why? Nod. Find it in your head. Nile, no wonder you have no wife. You pay for escorts. Is that how a woman is handled? Nod. Get out of my bed. Nile, ha ha ha, got you. I was looking for your weakness. You are so emotional that is why you were so humble. Sorry about that. Enable man does not allow others to find his weakest spot. I want to tell you that. Nod. Forget it. That is childish psychology. Nod had lost temper. He had taken his time trying to understand the girl, who instead remained adamant. He told her to go to the visitor's room and leave in the morning. He apologized for overestimating her. The night was not ending. Nile flashback to Queen warning to behave before Nod, for she still wanted his money. She laid facing up while calculating the exact words to use to sway Nod, but got stuck. She chose to tell him the truth. She said she feared to tell him earlier because Queen would be mad at her. She added that she was looking for tuition, nothing else. Nod felt pity for the girl and told her to sleep. Early in the morning, she woke him up to take breakfast. She had prepared it herself. When he opened his eyes, he saw no reason for letting the girl go. He stood up and opened his arms. She clicked that he wanted. She stepped forward while putting on his shirt and rested in his chest. Her eyes were sparkling. She had liked him despite the stubbornness. Slowly, she removed his oversized shirt from her and saw standing breasts. Nod had taken long minus experiencing this. Their time had brought it. He took his time to caress her perfectly well. She began to breathe faster. Various tones emanated from her mouth, and she was getting cozy. He lifted her to the bed, then started kissing her from the toes up. When he reached the V area, he skipped to the belly. which he explored with his beard. By the time he kissed her nipples, she had already thrown away her knickers and his nightwear. She stole a glance at his man standing and asked him to enter. Nod looked into her eyes and smiled. Chapter 8. The Adulterous One. He slowly stole a kiss from her. She wanted more as one of Nod's hands moved beyond her waist. She had wetted her pants. When he tried to steal another kiss, he was grabbed by the head and kissed madly for about 3 minutes. Nod then set himself to execute the mission. However, he found it difficult. In spite of the fact that it rained heavily, the road was too narrow for him to pass. He looked at her, belly shaking, thighs quaking, calves dancing, and realized Nile was still a virgin. When he tried again, she shouted at once that he was killing her. Judging on the way she kissed him, the girl was a typical amateur 001 hash. Nod left her alone, went for a shower, then stopped for breakfast. She sat opposite him, so shy. She did not know what was in his mind. She then asked him not to tell Queen about the disappointment. Her eyes were paining. She finally burst into tears. She never wanted her first sex to happen with someone she never loved. She took a glance at Nod and sobbed again. Nod told Nile never to bother herself because he never went deep upon learning her status. He added that he had denied her, but she too showed interest. Graveyard silence covered the two as they finished breakfast. Kenya had come. He took her away, then he picked the boss. Work moved on normally. 20 o'clock brought the board meeting. Discussions continued for hours. Mr. Chow complained about the CEO's misbehavior of late. He added that he spent much time out of his office, which led to the loss of the government contract to the competitor. He also added that the man lacked enough experience in representing the company in the media, thus a position especially for a media consultant had to be created. Luna intervened when she said companies' sales had increased within months and the government deal Chow was talking about was a swindle, evidenced by that morning newspaper that unveiled it to the public. Chow barked at her to be silent because she had no knowledge about what he was talking. He added that she knew one thing: selling in the name of the company. Mr. Chow had taken issues so personal that the rest of the board members saw it. Many suggested that the position of qualified media personnel was requisite to not only protect the CEO but also the entire company's image in media. Chow then felt at ease. His department was in charge of recruiting the suitable person. He walked with his head in the air to his office, where the wife met him. She confronted him right away. She reminded him that the company never belonged to his grandfather, thus had no right to attack their boss as he wanted. She added that calling her unfaithful during the board meeting never elevated his status, but belittled him to a coward who failed to fight and win his battles. While she was still quarreling, Chow hit the table and ordered her to move out. He advised her to go slow on him and stop pretending because he had enough evidence that she cheated. She walked straight to the washroom, then her office, where she sat uncomfortably, digesting the husband's words. She had no idea about what Nod had thought. She worked on her load very fast, then went to the CEO's office. In front, she stood staring at him. She lost words after greeting and moved to the door. She did not know what to tell him. Nod gave a seat, however, she declined when she stammered it was all right. Luna liked Nod, but she knew Maria, her sister, liked him too. Confused, she fumbled opening the door only to be seized by Nod, who stood behind her gently. She wondered how he jumped to reach her. He explained that he knew Chow had lost control but had a point in his statements. Luna then turned, wanting to know what Nod meant. He held her waist as she rested her hands on his shoulders. Luna whispered his name romantically as he pulled her to him. She was feeling every touch from Nod. He lowered his hand to her thighs. Oh, so warm and enticing. She could not wait kissing him. He lifted her up to the office table where he stood in the middle of her legs, letting her unbutton his white shirt. As soon as she finished, someone knocked at the door. The knocking accelerated, then a coarse voice followed. It was Chow, furious. When it opened, Nod was there alone. He asked him where Luna was. Nod advised him to hire a bodyguard to take care of her since she was a minor and did not know what to do. This provocation was too much. Everyone Chow had asked for Luna's whereabouts, pointed at the CEO's office, and insisted that she was inside. Nod was swimming in hot soup. He stole a glance at Chow, then rolled eyes to the side of the toilets for seconds as ordered him to leave his office. He checked one by one, then requested for the key of the last room. Nod surrendered it while mocking him to always prevent the disease, for the cure was too overpriced. Besides, some ailments were incurable. Rage shadowed his eyes and ears that he could not hear the same door opening. Luna had moved out, locked up with a spare key, then entered one of the rooms. Luna had moved out, locked up with a spare key, then entered one of the rooms Chow had checked. By the time the madman opened, it was empty as Christ's grave at the day of resurrection. He thought again, then chose to recheck all the rooms. He did, following his instincts, until he reached the room in which Luna was. As soon as he touched the door handle to open, his cell phone rang. The delegates from the Ministry of Gender and Labor had arrived. He had scheduled an appointment with them. Chow, in no time, galloped to his office. It was by the Lord's mercy that Chow never saw Luna. She came out and embraced Nod with a passionate hug. Their relationship had lost direction at a wrong time. They could not control their emotions, even at work. Luna finally asked Nod whether she truly liked Maria. Luna finally asked Nod whether he truly liked Maria. His answer was shocking when he said he never knew what she was talking. Luna felt confused. She could not believe that Nod had denied that he did not know his secretary's name until she mentioned her duty. Luna realized that Nod would deny knowing her someday. He scratched his head, then intoned that Maria and him were good friends with no intentions of going intimate. He added that he was still single and searching. Thus, it was his obligation to test the depth of water before swimming. Luna inquired to find out whether she was also part of the water to be tested. Having realized that Chow was already in the meeting, Nod also replied enticingly that if she wished to be. No was absent. She immediately climbed him as he rested her on the table as if it was at first. She immediately climbed him as he rested her on the table as it was at first. He kissed her with love as she complimented him. Nod then made Luna lie on the table, then stripped her clothes off to leave her eyes. He stripped her clothes off to leave her in the bra and panties. He picked up his necktie and tied it around her head to cover the eyes. Nod picked a bottle of water, then dripped a few drops onto Luna's bare body, which he swallowed intimately. Her body was so attractive and irresistible. He jumped to lock the door and came back. He professionally took his time, made out with her to satisfaction, and lifted her to the wall. Chapter 9. Bedding Two Sisters. It was so sweet. No one could believe that the two had slept together from the office. Luna recalled Chow driving her in the same office when he was still the acting CEO. She saw the chair and asked Nod for another round from it. He called her instead and dressed her up, then made her sit onto his laps. Luna then started caressing his neck as he slowly fixed his middle finger inside her. She began feeling it, then unzipped his trousers and sat on him. She rode on him as crazy until a key was heard opening from out. Maria had come. She could not open for another key was already inside. She instead knocked, and Luna opened. Maria straight away asked her sister why she had to lock herself inside with her boss. Everyone knew that allegations about the two having an affair were very hot. Maria then turned to Nod, whose eyes were burning with guilt, and submitted the software disk she had gone to pick from the airport. She looked at his hand, which he withdrew, then he turned to see Luna. Unfortunately, Luna had moved out. She suspected something unofficial, but wanted evidence. She moved towards the already satisfied Nod and pecked his chin. She glared at him as if she wanted to tell him something. She moved to the door, then he turned at once and asked if he would give her audience at the villa. She wanted to pass by for a glass of wine if he did not mind. Nod ordered her to accomplish her assignment first, then if the issue was of value, it would be discussed after work. He drafted the company's reports from respective heads of department. The degree of invention was lacking. He called Secretary Maria to send letters for competition. The boss gave everyone a chance to demonstrate their innovative skills, and the winner would receive a satisfying reward. News circulated that Queen heard of it. I met her discussing with Chow about it. He was looking for a skilled personnel in media as well as a great computer programmer. I knew something about computing from the university, but not to the level of working for a big company like this. I picked my PC and practiced the little graphics, web designing, and other programs. Company workers became busier since then. Some slept in the offices coding. Whatever it was, Nod had logically elevated the company's status in the city. He kept at the company till late in the night, monitoring his workers. He had even forgotten that Maria had proposed to see him. Disappointed, the lady slept, having waited for him minus showing up. She sent him lovely messages, lamenting how much she missed him. Sincerely, Maria deserved Nod. No one could doubt this fact if they had ever met the duo together. The following day, work resumed abnormally. People were so serious to an extent of missing meals. Through his secretary, the chief pinned that the winner was to head the innovation branch answerable to him, to be given an office, cash worth $20,000. The second was to be the winner's assistant, taking $10,000, while the third person was to take $1,000 and maintain their position at the company. Chow, as usual, let the cat out of the bag. He had surely fallen for Queen. That afternoon, the board sat complaining that the prize money would cost the company a lot. However, the CEO explained that the budget had already been catered for by the company's friend from UK. It was a naked lie used to halt internal criticism. Nod had financed this project using his personal money, and after all, he was so rich. He moved to his office from where he continued scrolling his cell phone through the gallery. He reached a certain picture and zoomed it in and out. It was final. He took quality time viewing the structure of the girl, then scrolled to Maria's and finally zoomed out for Luna. He turned to Niall's nude picture, then rested the phone on the table when Maria came in. She wanted to confirm whether he would create time for her in the evening. He assured her that they were going back together after inspecting the boys. Working, she picked his phone to alert Luna that she might delay going home, but Nod grabbed the phone very fast, and Maria wondered why did so. She tried to explain, but the person bitterly shut her up and cautioned her never to touch his phone without permission. Oh, he had overreacted. He recalled Niall warning him that letting others know his weakness would let him down. Nod immediately erased the picture and handed over the phone to her calmly. She then inquired about the essence of nude photos in his phone. She had seen it, though never recognized the person besides. Maria had met Niall once in a tough condition and never attached any importance. She advised Nod that he was the biggest man at the company, thus so important. She added that if a foil landed on what the phone contained, the company's name would be tarnished in general, and his in particular. Nod excused himself that one of the competitors had designed a dating site, which he sent him to see. However, it was so confidential that no one else was supposed to know in respect to patent rights. He began to explain the theory of copyright to Maria, who felt bored and asked him to change the topic. He had used 20 lies to sustain one. Together they toured around the company. Chow and Luna were still there. The two finally moved out to meet Kenya, who was ready to take them. Caring and bored Maria was, she started by telling him to change the closet, otherwise his garments were too casual to be worn by the CEO. He simply smiled as she took a glass of juice and moved around the house. In no minute, she came back wanting keys for the last two rooms. He knew she wanted to enter the museum. Nod led her inside as she gaped like a baby watching the birds in the sky. Everything she saw was wow. When she landed on the jewelry section, the mind got lost in wonders. She fantasized what her eyes set on. Nod explained the origin of whatever Maria touched. She was so happy. The problem came when she insisted on taking the golden pen that belonged to the 10th Egyptian pharaoh. She said it would be a nice souvenir in her office. Nod reminded her that if those who toured museums went with antiquities, they would remain empty. While leaving, she saw the diamond necklace and put it on. Nodi never noticed until they sat to play chess. He saw her smart with it and commented that women grew more beautiful with jewelry, and then made a move forward. She responded that generous men won many hearts of women. She too made a move. In no minute, Nod had lost the game. He remembered that day he wanted to give this necklace to Nile, who showed no interest, even though she had admired it. Maria clicked very fast that Nod was not happy with what she had done. She removed and gave it to him, then said goodbye. She walked away, leaving him thinking. She knew Nod was not simple. No sooner had he reached the doorway than he called her back. He gently stood in front of her and fixed the necklace around her neck, saying that it took centuries for a white star to shine during the day, but when it did so, celebrations were inevitable. He formally welcomed her to the villa. They moved out and watched the moon while jazzing. Maria asked him to throw light on the rumor that he had screwed Luna. She added that Chow had looked for Luna and never found, but when Maria went to Nodi's office, she was there carrying Nodi's perfume. As usual, many always had answers. He simply told her that the tree that bore fruits suffered stones in return. He engulfed her, then entered. She went to the kitchen and kicked off supper preparation. Nod always kept house cleaners away whenever a woman visited him. One would think that he did the housework himself. Everything was ever clean and organized. While still busy, like a rat in the cupboard, Nod stood behind Maria and tickled her. She almost burnt her hand. She simply turned to face him. Her eyes were very sexy and excited, and it was obvious that she had waited for this moment for long. She pushed him back a bit, then removed his necktie. There was no time to unbutton the entire shirt, since what she wanted was below. Chapter 10. Forced to choose. He had no choice but to shaft her from the kitchen. Whatever was cooked charred in no minute. They had to prepare again. Smiles covered the entire atmosphere, giggles everywhere. Nod stood behind her while caressing her belly. She was feeling the heavens, sea waves, whirring wind all around her. She picked a chip of Irish potato and fed him. Oh, so delicious. She turned and held him tightly, then asked Nod whether he liked her. It looked obvious that he would say yes. He tickled her to quick ribs with a gaffle as they moved for supper. Maria enjoyed feeding Nod a lot. She said he had to eat well because she was not ready to let him sleep the entire night. His phone rang numerous times, however, none could hear. To the master bedroom, the couple moved. They showered together, each yearning to swallow the other. When they moved out, Nod turned on his favorite hip-hop hits of the time as Maria took her time wiping her entire body. She then asked softly for the number of women he had slept with in his bed. Nod never answered. She picked her clutch bag and packed her nightwear, then asked him to take her home. Nod pestered for the pretext for her sudden change of mind, but Maria could not talk. She could not believe what she had seen. She insisted on leaving, then Nod conditioned the issue that he was to drop her home after telling him the reason. She instead picked up a quarrel, calling him a philanderer. She added sleeping with a woman of class would be understood, but a petty girl was shameful. She then threw a bra at him and said the owner was as cheap as a liar because it never even cost $5. The bra was so old and tired. It was past sixth hand. Nod picked it and nodded his head vertically. He was swimming in hot soup. He watched her crying while boxing him, then lifted her to the wall and kissed her. He then took her to the bed from where the song changed. People sweated like footballers after the match. She mentioned it to him that she loved him. Maria confessed that she had met men and loved them since high school, but she had never felt the way Nod made her feel. The lady was surely overjoyed to be in Nod's bed. Maria finally requested Nod not to let her down. Nod also told her that he knew what to do and was a better choice. There Maria wholesomely rested in Nod's arms, dreaming of being his wife. He asked her if the time she spent as Chow's secretary, something happened. Maria remained silent until Nod repeated. She told him that Chow disturbed her sporadically. However, Luna intervened very quickly when she learned about it. She added that her affection for Nod did not start lately, but was there from the day he stepped at the company. They kept talking till midnight. Morning set in. Someone was at the door. Maria moved straight, opened, and the movie began. It was Nile. She had called Nod, but when he never picked, she chose to come. At her sight, Maria reckoned she was one of the house cleaners and told her to start with the dishes in the kitchen, then prepare breakfast. Nile stood stuck for minutes, calculating the following move. She could not leave minus seeing Nod. When Maria went to meet Nod, she commented that his house cleaner was so beautiful and wondered how he stayed with her without getting attracted to the little angel. Nod got thunderstruck because he never expected the house cleaners to come without his signal. While he picked the phone to call at the gate, Maria mentioned her name. He immediately jumped out of the bed and dressed very fast to find no one in the living room. He thought Maria was creating stories. He moved up and prepared for work. The two finally went downstairs and sat for breakfast. Maria organized 3 cups, then poured milk, leaving Nod unstable. From nowhere, Nile appeared, carrying a dish of fried eggs. Nod. Nile? Nile. Good morning, sir. Nod. How are you, and why are you here? Nile. Queen said you declined my orders, yet I wanted to talk to you. Nod. I will pass by. Nile. It is urgent. By the way, you got a beautiful wife. I wonder why you go ahead too. Maria. Wait. Isn't that the accident girl? Does she work here? Besides, what is she talking? Confusion hit the dining table as Nile kept quiet. Nod looked at her with rage, then started taking breakfast uneasily like swine eating elephant grass. Maria picked interest in Nile's words. Maria concentrated on knowing the orders Nile had to execute for Nod. She turned to Nile to explain further. The girl instead spoke in tongues that two suns never shone on one universe as she ate. Maria pestered for the meaning from Nod, who barked at Nile to halt her provocations, for she was an intruder. The game continued when Nile passed a statement that an intruder he did not know very well managed to beat the security without consultation. She drank a little. Maria comprehended that Nile was not a house cleaner. She demanded an explanation. However, Nodi grew more furious and asked Nile to vacate. Maria stopped her for a lot had to be discussed. Queenie called. She told her that her father